Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time of day it is where you're watching us from. It's Wednesday again. Geez, it's crazy how fast time goes by. But you know the old story, time goes by when you're having fun, and I guess we're having fun.
We are
Right?
having a blast, Glenda. It is too much fun. It seems like we just signed off and here we are again, which is exciting. I love this. We have these amazing guests and we have fun and we learn. And anytime I can learn something, I am a very happy person.
Yeah, I get it. I'm right with you. You know what? I feel that when the day I'm put down is the day when I'll stop learning. Until then, yeah, I'm right here, and that's why I love doing this. And we just want to put it out there to everybody that it's all about learning and growing, and the whole idea of our show is to do just that, to help you shine in any way of your life. So if there's anything that you are hearing that maybe relates to somebody that please share us, because that's the whole idea. We want the messages to go out. So today we have another incredible guest, and I'm excited because this woman, I met her a little while ago when we actually connected because we became kind of little soul buddies when we went to an event at Forbes Live. And that was our initial meeting up of things. And we found out that we actually had a lot in common. And how about that? But it's wonderful, right? So we are going to be joining her. She will be joining us in a few minutes. Her name is Terri Liggins, and I'm going to read her bio because she is just, I couldn't begin to even tell about this. It's just easier if I do this because, what a remarkable woman. As she survived a mild heart attack at the age of 40 and overcame an autoimmune disease called ceridiosis, and I could be spelling or saying it wrong. Terri knows all too well of how precious and fragile life is. That's why, in addition to being a lifestyle app developer, she loves to educate individuals on how to maintain not just a healthy body and a safe infectious-free home environment as well. She's calling my name. In addition, in 2000, at the height of her illness, Terri was forced to leave her 19-year stint in corporate America, and turns her love for writing into a viable ghostwriting business. Over the next two decades, her clientele of ordinary people with extraordinary stories, including the likes of world-renowned motivation speaker Les Brown and some of his speaker trainees, and retired U.S. Senator Roland Barris from Illinois, who replaced Barack Obama. After 12 years of relentless searching for her solution to her illness, Terri was introduced to eating only 100% base food, high protein superfoods, which relieved her body of all the symptoms in just 7 days. She also got rid of 30 pounds of fat over a 6-month period. She maintains an 80-20 raw vegan lifestyle to remain disease-free. Her best-selling book, Get Your Raw On, Fix Your Immune System, and Fix Your Gut Health, helps others on their wellness journey. So we got to bring Terri in right away and hear what's going on, because not only what she's done for herself, but what she is obviously doing for others is just remarkable. Hello, Terri, and welcome.
Hi, how are you ladies doing? Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh,
Well,
we're
I'm
thrilled.
excited. I'm very excited to have you here because I recognize the name. We're friends on Facebook, but to get to know you is really special. So thank you for being here.
Oh, most certainly, most certainly. And Glenda and I, yes, as she mentioned, we became instant soul buddies. We were in the same hotel. We shared the same Uber ride. I don't know how many times through that weekend. So yes, we had a great time. Great time.
So first of all, I know I pronounced it wrong. Tell us what went on in your body, and how do you even know what to do at that point?
Oh, I'm telling you. And yeah, and don't feel bad about saying that name wrong. I had never even heard of it before I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis.
Yes.
Sarcoidosis. doses. Yes, it is an autoimmune disease that can infect anywhere in your body where you have tissue. Mine happened to be in my left lung, and it just pretty much keeps you where you are looking normal on the outside, like lupus, fibromyalgia, those type of autoimmune issues. You look normal to everyone, but inside your body is fighting itself. Your white blood cells are just, pretty much just they're at constant whim and until they just give out. And then so you're very susceptible to a lot of things that are going on out there in the environment, free radicals and such.
And this all happened around the COVID time, when I would imagine when everything else was hitting out there.
No, actually, I've been great through all that.
Oh,
mine happened way back. Mine was back when I was going through all of the biopsies and the tests, the scans, the x-rays and all that stuff after the heart attack. So in a 6-month period after having this mild heart attack, I then was diagnosed with this autoimmune disease. It was like one thing after another, world falling apart health-wise. And I dealt with that for 12 and a half years of just not knowing. They have no known cause for it. And so there is supposedly no known cure. Put it that way. Back before 1948, they thought it was TB. It had the same symptoms as tuberculosis.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's crazy. And Terri, you had a heart attack at age 40. That is so incredibly young. And when you say mild, what were your symptoms? I've heard of people saying that they've actually had heart attacks and they've never known it. They'll go in for a checkup and like, did you know you had a heart attack? So I'm curious, just because I'm getting older, but what symptoms do we look for? What were your symptoms?
That is the problem right there. A lot of times the symptoms are such that someone would not have, they're not expecting that they're even really sick. For me, I was married at the time. I had young children. They were in elementary school. I thought it was indigestion that I was having. And I popped a couple antacids, went to bed. And this was like day 2 of feeling this way. I went into work mainly because I thought I was going in mainly because I had a new assistant starting that day and I had to train her, right? Like no one else could have trained her or, whatever. But really in hindsight, the reason I went there was to be saved, to have my life saved, because as I was training that young lady throughout the day and she would see me kind of clutch my chest like this. And she finally said, what's the matter? And I said, well, just a little, something going on, whatever. It's no big deal. And she said, no, you should go or she asked, had I gotten it checked out? I said, nah, it'll be fine. Then she pulled out a newspaper article from her wallet. It was an obituary. Her sister had died at age 33 due to an illness. I don't remember what the illness was, but I remember her saying, due to an illness that she ignored. She put it off. I said, okay, I get the hint. Maybe I will go to urgent care. And so what did I do first though? Because this was late in the afternoon. So I first went to the after school daycare center, picked up my children, took them home, fixed their dinner, settled them in with their homework, left a note for the husband that I was going down the road to the urgent care center. And that's the craziness. That is exactly why things like that happen.
That's the mother. That's the mother. As women, as mothers, we, because, if we don't do it, who else is going to do it? The world just will stop if we don't do it.
It does stop.
In our way, it stops. Things will still get done, but they won't get done our way.
And doesn't matter. So that's another whole question, and we need to start looking at ourselves really honestly. And it doesn't really, things don't need to be perfect. Things don't need to be our way. They just need to keep moving, whatever that may be. So it's at that point when you went there that you found out.
Yeah. They did an EKG and they said, ma'am, you've just had a mild heart attack. It's not on the scale of such and such, but you've had a heart attack. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. There's no time in my schedule for that. No.
I didn't pencil it in.
Right. Let me come back to you. They said, no, ma'am, you better call your husband because you're not driving home. We're admitting you to the hospital right now. And so that's how all that started. And it started me to think that, what am I trying to prove? You just, you have to do like what they say on the airplane. Put your oxygen mask on first before you can help anyone else. So I was not taking the time out to rest. I was not taking, putting that, giving myself a refill before I was doing everything.
And I think that's so common, don't you, Glenda, with women? We just ignore things that are going on within us. And we, like you, Terri, we just we do this, we just keep moving forward. Yes. And putting ourselves second, third, fourth, depending on how many kids and husbands and dogs. And, it's
really in there.
Dogs right. In the mix. Absolutely. Yeah, and so, and what a blessing that whoever you were training that day, that's no accident.
Exactly. That was why I was to go to work. Yes. Yes.
It's an amazing story.
Yes, so you find out more about this. So was this what you were also, this autoimmune, was this related to the heart attack?
Not related, but again, as the universe designed, had I not gone in for that situation, would I have found out about the autoimmune issue it started really taking me down fast, I would say. And probably the medicine didn't help. The medicine was probably making me sicker at a faster pace, only because over a 6-month period, I was being seen by 3 specialists, a cardiologist, an internal specialist, and a pulmonary, an internal doctor, and then a pulmonary specialist. And I was on 15 different meds. And it's like at one point, it said, if you're taking this, don't take that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am taking this and that. I'm like, these people are trying to kill me. And so I went looking for a journal, so to speak, because, writer, even before I went into writing full time, I was just, I guess I've always been a writer at heart. And so I wanted to journal everything I was doing, eating, meds I was taking and all that, and didn't find anything on the market. So I thought, well, I guess I have to create it. So I designed a journal and trademarked it and everything. It was called My Wellness Helper. And the doctor office, they got used to seeing me come with my little black portfolio looking thing, little planner thing. They knew that they were not getting in and out of there in 3 minutes. I had questions written down, they had to answer these questions. And so I used to teach people how you have to be a partner with your doctor. You can't just go there and say, fix me. They don't know. They don't know what you've done, what you've eaten, Yeah.
I believe in being your own advocate in any sort of way. And it's really important. And I love the fact that I always say that, I've said that for years, even to people that I love and are around me, is when you're going through things, start keeping tabs of what you're eating, what you're taking, how you're feeling, how it, what happens. And because if you don't know, and nobody remembers, there's too much to remember. Right.
It's too much to remember. And the doctor is not a mind reader.
No, but he also doesn't have the time for you. Right. So it's if you don't have it right there, it's like, okay, next. Right.
Exactly.
Well, that's scary, because when you're talking about the meds you were on, doctors often prescribe what they want to give you, but they don't see what the other doctors are giving you. So there's no accountability in terms of, oh, well, you shouldn't be taking that, or you should be taking this. So once again, your pharmacist is your best friend in that scenario, along with you advocating for yourself.
Exactly. And keep in mind, we're not talking about this just happening. I'm a little bit older than 40. So this was 23 years ago. So there was no digital, there was no telehealth stuff. There was no digital record keeping. So one doctor did not know what the other doctor was doing until you physically carried your papers over there to that particular office, or if it was requested and things were faxed. I think this was even before HIPAA, if I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
mistaken. Yeah, we didn't even have HIPAA laws back then, right? No. So
Now
it was
we're really dating ourselves.
I know. So yeah. So it wasn't until 12 and a half years later I was introduced to nutrition. Who knew? I didn't. I had a bit of knowledge along the way when someone was telling me about candida yeast, where they got rid of all like white flour, white rice, white sugar, white bread, all of those things that have so much sugar hidden in them. And that got rid of their illness. And so I did do that, but that was all I knew to do. And the condition got a little better. It was my condition was I was very short of breath. I couldn't go up a flight of stairs without being very winded. And it got to the one point I had to be carried up and down the stairs.
Wow.
And then the pain, it was like sharp pains, as though with every breath that I would take in, it was just like another stabbing pain. So your body in reacting, it just like tightens up and you can't move. And there was a time where, I would not go to the ER unless I really, really had to, because there was nothing really they could do for me. Just give me antibiotics, send me on my way. And there was one time where I had to go to the ER. And at that point I was in ICU. It had gotten so bad where they had to watch my breathing. I was in ICU. And at that point, I had my best friend of 38 years was in a whole nother town. She was in Dallas, Texas. I was in Chicago, Illinois at the time. And she was suffering through an illness, a cancer situation that they didn't catch in time. And unbeknownst to me, she was in the hospital. And she had left a message on my home phone, and I didn't get it until I was out of the hospital 3 days later. And her message was they wanted to have surgery on her, and she wanted to know what I felt about it. And I was her medical POA, and she didn't make it off of that surgery table.
Oh.
And I just, that was a low point in my life. And I felt responsible to the point where I said, how can I help anyone, my children, my best friend, anyone, if I'm in the hospital myself? So I said, God, you have got to help me with this illness, take it away. And within 1 year, or just a little bit over 1 year, I was introduced to living superfoods and, as using nutrition as medicine, pure nutrition, right? Plant-based protein, all of the whole works. And in just 7 days, because I was ready, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah. I was never a vegetarian. I was never a vegan. I lived in Texas, for heaven's sakes. They don't even know what vegan is there. We saw what they did to Oprah when she mentioned about not eating a hamburger, right? Oh. So I knew nothing about being a vegan. And when I heard about this and learned about it, I'm like, I'm in. And so I went from day one of eating a standard American diet to the next day eating 100% raw. And within just 7 days, all symptoms went away. All of it. And I also had 7 days. Yeah, 7 days is all it took. And I had fibroids. They went away. I had those since pregnancy. And at that point, my son was, I don't know, he was in college at that point. So yeah, that went away. And then the weight just, as you mentioned, Glenda, the weight just kind of melted away over the next several months. I went down 4 dress sizes. It just, I did not know that was even possible.
But let me stop you there for a second. Okay, so how do you know? Okay, I understand because I've gone through a lot of things, and I'm one to watch what I eat and all of this stuff. But how did you know at that point? Were you having problems when you were eating of digesting the food? Was there something that was telling you it was time to try something else?
No, throughout my life, in fact, I was what I call like maybe a skinny, unhealthy person. So it's just it's unfortunate in this society that we relate to how we see someone. We relate that to how healthy they are. And I was always on the thin side, and I could eat anything and not gain much weight. And so I ate junk. I ate a lot of junk food. And so it was like destroying me on the inside, but I was not having any digestive issues that I know of. I had, just, yeah. And in my younger days, going to happy hours and, all that sugar over the years, all that sugar from the alcohol being, and it just at age 40, my body just said, enough is enough. So that was the warning. Thank goodness it was just a warning, but it wasn't like a little bit here and there. It was just boom, you've had enough fun. And then everything else was just because what is happening is that your body, the free radicals are just taking over. And even like when people have cancer, what cancer is, down to the cellular level. And that's how I had to deal with it. I had to learn this is all about your cells being healthy. And an unhealthy cell is a mutated cell, right? And so a mutated cell grows faster than a regular cell. And it's mutated because it doesn't have oxygen. So guess what you do? Drink a lot of water, H2O, there's oxygen in there. Do correct breathing, there's oxygen that you're bringing into the cells. And so your cells are deformed, they're growing at a faster rate, so they're clustering. And when you have these clusters, it's called a tumor. And then, it's cancer because it's a tumor. But you can get to that and undo it in a natural way without chemo, which burns not only the good cells, not only the bad cells, but the good cells. That's the unfortunate thing. But you can undo cancer, you can undo diabetes, you can undo high blood pressure, you can undo all of these nuances and some very terrible ones, of course, if you catch it early enough and if you know what you're dealing with and you get rid of the fear of it that is put in you from just knowing that you have this issue going on. First and foremost, you get rid of the fear, and then let's tackle it. Let's deal with it to the source. So when I went raw, and it was in September of that year, and then with family time coming up with Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, people were like, "How did you deal with that?" I could look at that wonderful Thanksgiving spread, the turkey, the dressing, the yams, and just the pies, everything. I can look at it and say, "Oh, I remember how great that tastes." And then that's the emotional side. And then I would click on the intellect side and say, "Boy, did it make me sick over time."
Yeah.
So I would just have to really intellectually look at what we're doing to the inside of our body. Especially with dairy. Dairy is one of the worst for me. Dairy, meat. I don't think that I could ever go back to anything like that. Now I have, since then, I've gone back to eating cooked foods, some cooked foods. So that's why I say I'm only 80% now. And that cooked food is still the vegetables. I can make a stew, or I will eat salmon. Salmon is one of the few things, in that meat category that I'll eat, because it's, especially if it's wild caught, it's healthy, a lot of omega fats in that. And but the the beef, and aside from the parasites and the toxins, man, when you heat that stuff, that's where the danger really lies. When you heat up that mac and cheese, the pasta itself is already problematic, but then the heat, it makes it, there's carcinogens in there. And you know how when you see the pan that you make your mac and cheese in, and there's those brown spots that you just can't scrub off anymore, that nice glass pan is no longer, beautiful looking, because that's what's happening to the inside of your body as well. It's acrylamide. And over time, what is that doing to your, precious insides that are just so fragile?
And that's the whole thing, like I understand, I also have my own food intolerances that I can't do. And, when people ask, like, well, how do you like, I can't do chocolate and I don't do cheeses. And people will say, I don't know how you survive without it. But here's the whole thing. When you don't feel good when you eat something, why would you eat it in the first place? Like,
Because
I
of
don't
the
get
emotional tie.
right. So it's, it's all about, and that's part of learning of how to care for yourself is
Yeah.
by feeling, just like you were saying, of keeping that journal of how you feel when you eat certain things. If your body is blowing up, it's like a grenade, and you're not feeling good with what is it? Do not tweak it in here and say, you know what? This isn't something that's working with me, my body. So why
Yeah.
would I be bringing that into my system?
Well, unfortunately, what has happened is that so much of the sugar in our lifetime. Now, there was a time where, not to date you ladies. Now, I do know Glenda's age. Not sure yours, Nicole, but
We're all in the same bracket.
I'm old. Yes.
we all remember that time. Oh, okay, yeah, we're all in the wonderful 60s. Well, we all remember that time when we went to fast food restaurants as a treat, not as a daily thing. It was like your family went there. Oh, let's go as a family gathering kind of thing. Every day, fast foods, the amount of sugar in there has done a number on an individual's cognitive thinking. So a lot of what happens is that they can't even rationally think that, oh, this, fifth Coca-Cola of the day is not good. That part of their thinking is not so keen anymore. And, not to be rude about it, but there are studies that really do show what happens to the brain. There's the hippocampal area. There's just where the cognitive thinking takes place, where the memory takes place, and I haven't like brushed up on all my brain parts, but it's really, really, really scary when you think about how much people don't care that what they're eating is destroying their insides.
That's the thing I find most interesting when I go shopping, because I'm always filling up with the veggies and, things that are very beans. I do beans because I'm like you. I'm not vegan, but I'm definitely vegetarian. And I look in some of these carts and I just remember how I used to feel when I ate Cheetos and Doritos and drank soda and, the Hot Pockets. There's no nutrition, none in any of that. And, the front's for advertisement, the back is for education. And I don't think many people read the back. And truly, we're receiving very little now just from our vegetables because of the way we've, sprayed them and grown them. There's not as many nutrients in our dirt as there used to be. But to not even eat that. And, I'm like you, mine was over a little bit of time. My body feels so much better than I did 25 years ago.
Awesome. Yep. And that's how it should be, because we're gaining more knowledge now.
Yes.
And a lot of knowledge was hidden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but there's so much that is right there in plain sight. But unfortunately, as a society, we've just been brainwashed for so long that no one will want to even go and look at that. Or you've probably heard someone say, oh, don't even tell me what's in it. I don't even want to know. I just want to keep eating it. Don't ruin this dessert for me. But and as you were saying, Glenda, they don't understand, or they think that you're being deprived because you're not eating that chocolate and such. But at some point, you don't miss it.
No, you don't. And I've changed. Like I'm not a sugar eater. Again, it affects my body. It affects my balance of things. And I found out years ago, I actually had to go on many years ago. My sugar levels were too high, and I actually had to go on a Candida diet. And so you want to know about everything being taken out of your life, go on a Candida diet. There's, you're not even allowed fruit to have because it has no natural sugars, no sugars at all. You have to bring it down and when your body is producing too much. And you learn that it's really like, I love my fruit, but again, I'm still mindful of how much fruit I eat. Will I start having, I'd rather cook my food. It's not such a big deal to cook. I am on my own, but let's put it this way, people make such a big deal about things, but for me, it's like, I'd rather cook a bigger meal. So I actually am having leftover, so I don't have to cook for another day or two or something like that. It's no big deal. Like I actually, through COVID, it was like I wasn't cooking as much till afterwards, until during COVID. And then it was like, I actually enjoyed this more. And that's when, I even lost weight during COVID because I was really eating well and exercising. And it just, the body felt really good. So, these are the things that, as I said, when I look at it and we're not getting older, we're just becoming wiser. And because of what we've learned.
Absolutely.
So if somebody's going through problems in their body and, this is something like, still not sure of what it was that you knew that to take that step into starting to take over your foods, because most people, I'm like that, but most people don't look at their foods.
Yeah. And I was one of those most people. I had no clue, like I said, until I was introduced. And excuse me, the person was or still is, he's a raw food chef, gourmet chef. And at that time, he'd been a nutritionist for 30 years of just really very peer-reviewed, scholarly research, just to the max. He's like a walking medical journal, not medical, but with nutritional journal. And he just in a conversation, we actually grew up together years and years ago. Our mothers were best friends. So we were really young at the time that our family moved to another city, and his mother passed when he was pretty young. And so we just never saw each other in all those 50 years. And then, so he just, so I guess there was a little bit of the trust there, because I'm like, oh yeah, I know, I kind of know you. And so he wasn't like a quack telling me all this stuff, but he was just rattling off stuff that I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, that's an easy one. Sarcoidosis, that's, autoimmune disease. Yeah, that's easy. I'm like, okay, why didn't I hear this 12 years ago? And so I trusted him enough to, he had this recipe book that he had created. And he now, I think, has 4 recipe books now. But I was intimidated when I first read it, because I'm like, oh, that's a lot of ingredients, but it's simple when you really, again, how badly do you want to feel good and be well inside? And that's why I tell people, don't do what I did. I went from one day eating junk food to the next day eating 100% raw. I said, don't do it unless you are really, really ready mentally, because, let's face it, the reason that most people are in the condition they're in is not so much what they're eating, but what's eating them. And Nicole, you probably know this through your clientele. You probably uncover a lot of things that's eating them. And then, so they're just, looking for comfort in their food and in other ways. So you have to get rid of that part first. And with my best friend dying like that was probably kind of like a very much turning point where I said, this is ridiculous, me being sick like this all the time, and so I was ready. I was very ready to hear, like when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And then the
Exactly.
teacher had a lot of good nutritional information for me. And so I did it his way. And we're not talking just eating little carrot sticks, celery sticks, and and some hummus or something right here and there. No, we're talking full, nutritional meals. I mean, I wish I had pictures. I may in my book have a picture of what it looks like to have a dish. It's not in this particular book of mine. It's Fix Your Gut, most recent one. But we're talking food that it looks like a Thanksgiving spread. It looks like a big hearty meal, but everything in there is either grains or nuts. It's made, and it's all sprouted. It's not cooked, baked, broiled, barbecued, sauteed. It was none of that. It's either dehydrated or sprouted, or it's amazing. It's amazing the taste and everything's beautiful.
Terri, I'm curious, are you familiar with Dr. Sebi? Yeah, now that amazed me when I started reading and learning from him. I know he's passed because he talked a little bit too much about curing cancer, so he's no longer with us. But when I started following his, and that's how I learned about genetically modified fruit. If it doesn't have seeds, regardless of what it is, it's been genetically modified. And so that brought quite an awareness to my food and what I was eating too.
Yeah.
So I did learn a lot.
I know. Yeah. It's really, we do have to put the responsibility a lot on our food industry. They know stuff.
Well, it's more than just the food industries. It's also the government that is
and the pharmaceutical
they're overseeing.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do with that, but we don't want to get into the political things.
I know, because that.
So I wanted. So this has led you now. So this has led you onto a new path in life, and that's what I want to go into. Because you have come up with, now that you're helping baby boomers of navigating through the fourth quarter, whether it's themselves or family. And I know all too well what this all part is like, because I've been looking after people basically all through my life. So when we've had this conversation, you and I, but you also came up with an app. So please, enlighten us with what's going on with what this is all came, from one thing, from every bad comes a good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Over the past, probably about 6 or 7 years now, about 7 years, I've been watching my girlfriends go through these situations of where they are caring for their elderly parents. And there was some very heavy situations where we're talking Alzheimer's, and that is something that is just, if no one's gone through it yet, you just hope they never have to, right? So a lot of times the situation that they would have to adjust, whether they're moving their parent into their own home, or they're moving in with their parent, or they have to move their parent into a facility. Either way, there was it would take a whole nother show to just list all the changes that happen and the adjustments they would have to make. And sometimes overnight things would just change in their parents' personalities. And so in several cases, I would find that, that a couple of them are having the same issues and not realizing that there's someone else going through that same thing. These would be people that maybe I just met, and they didn't know the people I knew. And so it was like we would have, a group meeting. It's like, let's just get together and, talk about what you're going through. And it makes it a little easier to go through it. A couple of times it was hard to have those meetings because why? Because of the situation they're in, caring for them, or in cases where their caregiver would not show up at the last minute. And so then they're stuck with, changing altering their schedule. So it's just really started weighing on me, like, how can I help my friends? How can I help my friends? And it started coming together that a digital app, sort of a directory, would be a great way for someone to be able to know that there's a place for them to go for resources. And the fact that we are in a society where a lot of us live in different cities from our loved ones, it was important to me that this app would cover 50 states. In the future, it should go beyond these 50 states in the US, Canada and UK and beyond. But they should be able to just dial up, find a vendor, a professional that they need in another state. I have a friend right now going through this in Texas, and his mother lives in Alabama. She's in her 90s. She refuses to leave her home, which is the case with most of the adults. But yet, how can he take care of her? And his own wife is going through some struggles right now after a major car accident. So it's like, he's like, can't wait for your app to come out. I'm like, I can't either. It's in its developing stages. It's almost ready. Should be by the end of this year. And so he would be able to order transportation services for her, get a caretaker to come in, a caregiver to come in. And there are apps already out there that allows you to talk to your caregiver, from a distance, who's taking care of your parent. They may be able to share, oh, we're doing this today. We're going to, to the museum today, and just wanted to let you share in what's going on. I mean, so there are just so many ways that were necessary to just put things in a digital format for those of us in our age where, that's not always the first thing that we think of. It has... and I'm actually looking for vendors right now, because it has the ability to give you the information you need if you need a living will, a living trust, POA, DNRs, whole estate planning. So individuals in those fields that are proficient in that. Downsizing, that's a big one these days.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, decluttering and downsizing, when you have to move your parent out of that home that they've been in for 30 years and more.
Yeah, I've done that, and it is very challenging, and it's very hard, because when you first walk in, that's it, the feeling that you get of that being your home also. So that's very challenging, much more than people would imagine.
Yeah, it is. And to be able to have all of that done without the stress of it. And and that's just on the side where we're all alive, right? Then you have the unfortunate part where the loved one has died without that will written, without the living trust, without even sharing their passwords. Now that's a big one too. How do you get into those bank accounts and such things that you need to do before that establishment finds out that person is deceased and everything is locked?
And that's the thing that as our generation, and even before our generation, and I know what I went through, my parents are both gone now, but my father was died of cancer, and over 30 years now. But when my mother, all of a sudden, things started changing. She had dementia, and it was little things that I noticed with her at that point. But I'm putting it out there to all of everybody who's watching this, that the whole idea, and for me, it was more of a situation because I had siblings that needed to continue and be cared for because they were mentally challenged. So I needed to make sure my mother's will was up and running and everything was in place, because I knew what the challenge is. But so here's the thing that I tell people myself, because I know what I had to go through in my own world of it. And when you you know, at a young age when I was actually, I'm paralegal. So at one point when I was studying and I was going through wills and estates, I actually went to my parents and asked them if their wills were up to date and if they had a, you know, a living will, and they had, you know, so if something happened, who had the rights to, if they needed to be, to pull the plug per se, or whatever. I needed to know all of that. And that's when I sort of started dipping into their world, which, you know, nobody wants to talk about.
Nope.
It's that,
True.
right? It's this, it's the, you know, like it's a horrible thing,
Right.
but it's not so horrible. You
And
know,
we're all leaving this earth.
yes, we're only here for a visit, you know, we're not hanging out forever. And, you know, like I've already had these discussions with my kids. I had years ago of telling my kids, you know, taking them to the safety deposit box, putting their signatures on. My kids know my passwords. I don't worry about any of these things because they're not there to hurt me. And that's what we have to learn, that we need to help our parents and our family as they get older. We need to become involved in their life and not left them out there to be dealing with all this on their own.
That's so true. That is so true. And I had that very opportunity to everything that I was creating in my mind about what I wanted this app to do and why I thought it was important to create it, and all that I saw my friends go through. I had a front row seat to that myself in 2019 when I had an unction to move back to Ohio to help take care of my parents. And they were not gravely ill or anything. My father had had surgery, and so he was limited in what he could do. He was in a facility because he couldn't, he and his wife, my stepmother, they had a 2-story house, so he couldn't go back there because he couldn't deal with any stairs. And so I thought, well, let me just go help. I have siblings there, but they're all, they work 9-to-5 jobs. As a writer, I can write wherever I have a laptop. That's where my work would take me. And so I had the flexibility. So I just felt it was my turn to just go, because I've always lived away from home all my adult life. Never was I ever in the same city. And so I thought it's time for me. And boy, am I so glad I went when I went. And I had the last 4 months of my dad's life to enjoy with him. And then I was there with my mom right before COVID. Who knew that we were going to have a pandemic where we were stuck? And I lived with her for those 2.5 years of just then being able to really do just like what you were saying. So we got her will, her living trust, got all of that together, updated mine. We did all that. It took a while. It does take time, folks. So you can't put this off.
No. And I have seen the situation where I've had friends that for their mother, nothing was in place.
Right.
It was just chaos, absolute chaos, a disaster. It really separated their family. And my mother, when she got sick, she wouldn't even see the doctor until everything was in a trust, a will. I knew everything because I was living, I'm not going to say it's smooth because it is very hard to navigate once someone passes, but she made sure that everything was going as smoothly as it could go. And I'm very grateful for that because it didn't cause any rifts in the family because my mother laid it out perfectly.
Nice.
So I highly encourage everybody to do that.
Yes. I don't know how much more we can convince people of that. It's just, I know some of it's just human nature why people wait until after their house is burglarized to get a alarm system, and why do we wait until, after someone's ill to get medical insurance on them or something? I don't know. Or just a lot of times, I don't know. I mean,
it can never happen to me scenario. And it always does.
It is. That is kind of it. It's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable. But a lot of it could be just that no one's saying it or saying it enough. So
Because
that's from,
everybody's scared to bring it up, as if you bring it up, it's going to be, somebody's going to be upset with it. And we have to realize that some of these things that are hard, actually what it can do for your relationship is it can bring you actually closer together. So, when if you're sitting back and you're feeling that we're maybe touching upon something that you don't want to do, think about it in a different way. When my dad had found out he had cancer, myself and him, we had some major, incredible talks. And, those are the talks that have left me with a lot of knowledge and some really important things that I found out that I didn't even know through the years as I went through life. So, sometimes when you're going through these things, instead of that, because afterwards it's too late. Afterwards, like, I don't know how things work in the US and Canada, then the government comes in and, if it's not in it, they come in and they take over, and you don't want that. And it's a very hard thing. So if you get it done and early with, there's enough to deal with in life if somebody is ill, never mind to deal with the will on top of things.
right. And you can't just look at it as something to do when you're older, or that our parents only should be thinking of this, because I've been faced with several situations where, I mean, one in particular, a cousin of mine was only 59 years old, was visiting, and he was a newlywed. And so we were having lunch, and, I was teasing him about the fact that his wife didn't yet know. And she's like, yeah, he's not shared all of his stuff with me yet, where the insurance papers are, where this, and he's like, I know. It never dawned on me. He said, I promise I'll do that as soon as I get home. The next morning, I got a phone call that he had had a massive stroke.
Oh my goodness.
While they were packing to go back home, this happened. Now, again, very fortunate that he lived through it. It was only, the doctor said he had multiple strokes happening. And we were just talking about it. So we really, and if COVID didn't teach us anything, is that, it doesn't matter what age someone is.
Doesn't matter.
You just can't put this off. And the tagline for my app, the app is called Fourth Quarter Living, because we are in this fourth quarter. But the tagline is, when later is now.
Oh, I like that.
I do too. That's very clever. And we all need to remember that, just like having it, but we could walk outside and, you could drive a car and you just don't know, anything could happen at any moment.
Yep.
And it's better to be safe than sorry. I've learned that the hard way through my life, but, hopefully in my fourth quarter, I've got some sense knocked into me a few times. I'm not going to guarantee it, but, I have learned a few things. So
haven't we all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not alone, Nicole. It's something. So that's, it's a beautiful thing too, because we're able to thrive in this knowledge. We can, as Glenda said, you can like put it aside. You've done it, like, shoo, okay, now I can
put it away.
Sure, put it away, and now enjoy life and live it to the fullest. And it's just as when someone comes to the knowledge of where the afterlife will take them, why then be afraid of it? Embrace life to its fullest, and then, and focus on that and live well. But we still have to live responsibly. That doesn't mean to say.
And that's exactly it. When we're in this fourth quarter of our life, and it doesn't matter, I saw what, I've seen enough what goes on with people when they're ill and all the rest. And it's, it always amazes me that, it's until somebody has a heart attack is when they finally start looking at their diet. You see all these, and Canada used to be where we didn't have as many obese people. And I was blown away a little while ago. I went to something that we had in the city, and I watched all these people walking around, and I thought, oh my God, I have never seen so many young people that were so overweight. So it's, we got to learn to love ourselves and love our bodies so that it doesn't come into something where we're putting ourselves at risk. And, because you just don't know whether you're going to get a second chance.
Right.
And don't wait till you have the heart attack before you go on the diet, and don't wait until it's too late when, same with, how easy it is to become a diabetic. And if all you did was start to watch your weight and started to take out some of the stuff, you could go and you could turn it all around.
Yeah. But, there's a lot of myths still. There's a lot of things that are in the way of it being that easy, because there are people who think that it costs way much more to live healthy than it does to live the way they are happiest. The dollar menu, hey, I can get all this stuff for $1, and look what, how much I would have to pay for an avocado. So, but when someone says that to me, I say, well, I recall a time where I had to go to the hospital and I wasn't even there 24 hours. I was there 18 hours to be exact. And the hospital bill was $33,000 for 18 hours. Now you tell me what's more expensive, or someone having a migraine and chronic. I knew a person that had chronic migraines and her meds were like $100 for a couple pills. So you tell me what's more expensive, being healthy or,
Absolutely.
So it's there's a lot that goes into that. And then not to mention that, and I'm not going to get political again, but you go into a store and you can get a big old giant bag of Cheetos or something for $1.99 in certain areas where they may have, dollar stores and other little places, but then they don't have Trader Joe's.
The whole thing is it comes at a cost.
There you go.
You don't realize. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but
it's always you, Glenda. No, the bearer of bad news. Time's up.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I know, right? Terri, this has been incredible and so enlightening. Can you give our viewers, a word of wisdom? To something to think about when we end this show, so they don't continue on the way that they've been going?
Yeah, I would say just really think about your body as being the temple that it's designed to be, and that it's very intricate, and know that you have control over it. And think about this flu season. What is that? How does the flu know what time of year it is? It doesn't. But it's the amount of sugar that's in our body between Halloween with all the candy, and then take it all the way around to Valentine's Day. Just think of the amount of sugar you're eating at each of those holiday events and such. So as we go into this holiday season with the Thanksgiving spread and then the Christmas cookies and the New Year's alcohol and all that stuff, just be responsible in moderation until you're at a point where you can just flush it all out. And remember that later is now. You can reach me at terriliggins.com. I made it quite easy there. Terri, Terri, Liggins, Liggins.com. If you have any questions and want to look up some information, and to become a vendor on my 4th Quarter Living app, let me know.
And we'll put the link down so that viewers will be able to click on that and get in touch with you, because this is a very important subject that everybody needs to learn and grow from, and not to be hit by not being prepared.
That's right. Yes. Thank you so much for having me here. This was fun. I loved it.
Well, thank you for being here, for enlightening us with so much great information. And Nicole, do we have any last moment thoughts for our viewers?
I do. And I'm going to have to go with what both Glenda and Terri talk about. We've talked about this. We've got one body. And if we're lucky, we might have it for 80 years, maybe even 90. And you just start with one thing. Start with taking one thing out of your diet. Just say no to the Cheetos. and it comes easier. You don't have to do it all in one jump. I didn't, but what you'll start noticing is how different you feel. And then all of a sudden you can't tolerate the soda. You can't tolerate the Cheetos, and you're going to notice your body feels really, really different. It's going to become more sensitive to this. And I always say this is we don't have health care. We have sick care, because they're just masking the symptoms, and your body will tell you everything you need when you need it, and it will identify when you feel good. And I feel better at my age. I just turned 63 on Friday, and I moved to South Carolina and I took up paddleboarding. So those things are possible. And I say, get out. And like my dad always tells me, he says, darling, you got to keep your body moving. He says, and you got to have a sense of humor when it doesn't move. So that's it for me today. Thank you, Glenda.
Beautiful.
Happy
And
birthday.
just remember, love yourself. That's what it's all about. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And until next week.